Mhm.
So let me just check here. Usually it's so slick. There we are. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right, guys, welcome. Our Tuesday lunch break today is with Kelly Turbot, and we are talking about your financial future. So, Kelly is a financial planner, and she actually has a very interesting background on how she got here, and she might share a little bit about that with us. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have her on is she's really dedicated to making sure that women feel empowered around their finances and empowered around the future and empowered around their goals when it comes to money. And knowing that many of us women tend to either shy away from our finances or get a little nervous, I wanted to make sure that we had somebody come on here who this is what they do. And this isn't what she always did, right? She just kind of almost stumbled into this and found that this was sort of a place that she completely belonged in and a place where she could really do a lot of good to help serve women. So, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us today. Um, I know that when people start to talk about money and start to talk about finances, it can get a little bit stressful. It can be a little bit scary. And so I just want you to help anybody who's able to watch this or listen to it while they're doing their thing to just figure out how they can start to relax into owning their financial future.
Mhm.
So, just can you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Kelly Turbot. I'm a financial representative with Northwestern Mutual. I live here in Woodbury, Minnesota. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so deep down inside, I'm a Wisconsin girl at heart, but definitely love the Minnesota area. I'm part of Northwestern Mutual's Twin Cities agency here, and my husband and me have a co-practice together. We've had a business together for 4 years. I was more of a silent partner for quite a few years. I worked with a lot of business owners that were struggling financially, operationally, and did a lot of consulting work in that space. So I definitely grew a passion to work with women in business. I felt like it was their opportunity to not only build their own schedules, but also create their own path. And I think that's a lot of the reason why women navigate towards being a business owner. So I've worked in that space for quite a few years as my husband's practice expanded. We took on the opportunity to reach more people. So one of our big initiatives in our practice is to be able to help serve underserved markets, which is a tendency to be women. I'm married, obviously. I don't have, when I was young, my parents didn't teach me much about finances. I was actually left a lot on my own, which means that in my 20s, I mean, I made my fair share of mistakes and stuff as well. But the biggest thing I could say, that it's it's not easy to talk about it for the first time, but that's how you're going to make progress, is by self-awareness. So our reason was we had a financial advisor that just made me and my husband sit down and just talk about it for the first time. So we just kind of had to come to truth with our spending habits, which a lot of time is what gets you into trouble. Because numbers don't lie, but the second you put a number sign in front of a number, it becomes very emotional. So, money is a very emotional thing. A lot of times our relationships are formed early on in a childhood, whether or not you had a lot of money or little money, and just, how your life has evolved from there and the lessons you learn along the way. When you get married, you're not only, partnering with someone who has a different relationship with money as you from their background as well. And I am a firm believer that women just have a different relationship with money than men do. Statistically, the majority. I think if anything I noticed is I want to empower women to care a lot more, because you need to have your needs be taken care of. And if you're not married, essentially you're the head of household. So women have a tendency, just at least in my experience, to think more short term about their finances. So we think about our budget and spending, and the needs of whatever is kind of in front of us versus thinking more long term. Men have a tendency to think, about income. There's pressure early on from men to provide an income for their family. So they have pressures and stuff from our culture too that they have to live up to. But even from a prime example, like my husband who golfs, they bet money. Like that's their relationship with money. Do women really probably go out and bet? Maybe a little bit, maybe some of them do, but in general, it's not really, it's just different. So I like to encourage women that there's no bad place to start. I think it's, I meet people that have a lot of money. People that have lots of money can be very bad with their money. People that don't have money, there's opportunities to get better with that. So I just like to say it's never too late for people. It's just about taking that first big step, which I think is what people get worried about the most.
Yeah. So you've said so many good things already so far. So I remember I remember in high school, I had a teacher who was like all about planning for the future. And he gave us a budget spreadsheet. And it's like, if you start investing now, this is what your future could possibly hold for you. And that like stuck with me. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually married my high school sweetheart, and it took me ages and ages and ages to get him to go to a financial planner with me, because he was like, we aren't really earning any money yet. And I was like, I don't think that matters. I think we need to go. Like, I just felt like that was really important. And so the funny thing that you are mentioning is like, when you go and you talk to a financial planner, it is this big emotional like endeavor. Like every time we see our financial planner, the first thing he does is he just checks in with us. It's like, how's everybody doing? And then if we're like have these goals in our life, he's checking in on those that might not have anything to do with money, because he's like wants to know us and like really, understand what is it that makes you guys tick, so that when he connects the money to it, it makes so much more sense. But it's so loaded. And so I really appreciate that you're like, yeah, you go in there and you've got your money issues, they've got theirs, and it can be really emotional.
Mm-hmm. It's
But
really emotional. Mm-hmm.
but it's so cathartic.
People fear it. I notice that people like have different, we say in our industry, there's like 5 different types of people. Like you have someone who's a big saver who just fails to do anything with it. They're afraid. Maybe they don't believe in it, or they don't know what to do or whatever, or they just, that's just, they feel a lot more comfortable knowing that they have a bunch of cash in the bank. There's also people that want to be better naturally, that just want to be coached and told what to do. And then there's other people that are busy people on the go, which is a lot like busy moms out there, where just tell me what to do. Like, I want to do the right thing. We got to make it simple as possible. And then you get people out there that will do everything that they believe to prove you wrong in what you do, and just want to hold on to their opinions. But I think the biggest takeaway I have is it starts with your budget. Like you're going to meet a bunch of different financial companies, planners, people that are going to, throw out, how many different philosophies of what they think that you should do, as far as, your budget and your savings and your investment strategy, things like that. But I think that the biggest thing is just self-awareness. So the first step is just to make it a priority. And we always send our clients a budget worksheet. So the first thing is that a lot of times they have a budget. Some people really stick to a budget really good. I would say most people are kind of like, we kind of have a budget, but kind of not. But the goal is to see like, how much are you spending? So the first thing is to not be hard on yourself, but just be like, hey, like, okay, like, and usually, I think people make excuses, for spending, like, oh, I deserve this, or I'm tired, I need coffee, I need this, I need that. I'd say that if that's thoughts that you have, you probably have to work on a little bit about your relationship and your behavior with money, because that's the first thing that's going to change. In America, we have a tendency to think that there's an easy button for everything, or there's things that are going to be wiped away really easy for us, and that's not always really the case. But like my parents, for example, they don't make a whole lot of money. My parents are small town Wisconsin, but they've been able to build everything that they've ever wanted with their money, because they saved, lived within their means, and they planned ahead. So I think if you do that really well, it doesn't really matter how much income you have, because I think sometimes people think, well, even to work with a financial advisor, you have to make a lot of money or you have to have your ducks in a row. And that's like the biggest myth of all. That's totally not true, because a financial planner really just wants to be able to sit and listen to what matters to you in your life, and let's build what matters to you, because it's really different for everybody.
Can you say that again? Because I think that, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I have you on.
Yep. Really, it's your life, so it's just like, what do you want out of your life? Some people just honestly just want to have a low-key life of what they're living and just peaceful in the country. Some people want to go travel the world, so if you have those goals and you're behind on something, then that's your chance to be able to understand it for the first time. I'm a big believer in writing things down. So like, just, it's no different like with fitness, your goals, diets, anything. Like the more you write things down, I think it's like 42% or something like that. I don't know what that is, but a higher chance of you achieving your goal if you're making it a priority, looking at it, and just making the space and the time to be able to do it. So planning's no different. I have some clients that, they don't have much, but we're taking the step, a debt management strategy, and just learning how to look at their budget through a different lens to understand, like, okay, how do I manage a budget efficiently? Because that's number one. So it's not necessarily about how much you make, it's just about what you do with it. Because our tendency is a lot of times we just want to spend, buy, but the best way to get ahead is actually to, what are your expenses? What are your bills? What are your groceries? What are your gas? Like, what is going out the door every month? The things that no matter what you do, those always go out. And then there's also areas for improvement there, which means like, for me, I'm 35, I have 2 kids, and when they were younger, like, I just cared a lot about organic food, you know what I mean? But then my husband and me were just like, either we choose to spend way more on groceries and not save and have anything, or we just decide that, what, we're just going to take a step down and shop somewhere else and see if we can save some extra bucks. So there's a lot of opportunity and choices that you make along the way. It's kind of a give or take, you know. So, have a budget. The best thing I tell people is look at your credit card statements, look at your bank account. Where is your money going? We have it divided into like entertainment and fun stuff that, like, I go with my girlfriends, I get a bottle of wine, I want to buy, high-end makeup or whatever it is. That's just my choices. Like, that's just the amount that I'm dedicated each month. Okay. And then that is separate from like your groceries and gas and your bills and things that go out every month. If you're spending more, obviously the fun needs to be a lot lower, because you want to have fun. Like, we don't want to just live our lives just paying off debt, and just, you want to be able to have fun. So determining that amount is going to be based on your income of what you have. We recommend at least, I'd say, people start at different places. If you can get to saving 20% of your income for short-term and long-term goals is great, but you'll meet a lot of different advisors that will tell you a million different things. But I think the moral of the story is just to make sure that you're saving. So you want, 20% goal, towards savings. Then you have your non-negotiable expenses out the door, and then you just have money that you just want to be able to live your life off of. So what my husband and I did is we just set a targeted amount. I looked at our bank statement. I'm like, okay, this is kind of the average amount of what we're spending, but I was spending at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, things like that. We wanted to cut our costs. So we challenged ourselves that first month and just kind of made it kind of tight. And so the first time you do anything, it's always hard, no matter what it is, so you're like, oh my gosh, I have to change, but you're learning so much just by doing that either you're going to hit it or you're not. And then you're either going to learn either, crap, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought, I got a lot of work to do, or that was easy, maybe we can hash out a little bit more and keep going that way. So you can lower your expenses just by setting some targeted amounts that you spend each month. For example, some months like Christmas, you might go over your fun money because it's Christmas time, but that means in January you scale it back, so you can still live your life, but you're ebb and flowing with just life, and fun things happen at different times of year and come up too, where you don't feel like you're self-sacrificing your life, because you want to be able to do that. And then 20% goal, at least 10% if you've never saved before, just start a cash fund for yourself, which means like if you lost your job, if your car broke down, you have something that you can have for yourself just in case. And then the other part is just, what is that budget amount that you have for fun? So if you can budget that way, you'll be able to save, have fun, and control your expenses. Because the goal is that you don't want to keep shelling out money, because a lot of times people's relationship is if they buy something, they'll just find an excuse to buy it. For example, if this month, my end date is the 21st, and I spent all my money, on the 19th, I have to wait 2 more days before I can start over, which is teaching you to spend, to gradually just have a couple days in between before you spend again. So versus spending, you're actually playing within your means, saving within your means, and then just pausing and then doing it again. So I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's what women have the most questions with is their budget, because I think 2/3 of women spend their household income. So they're always looking for ways to be able to save, but the key is just an efficient budget and living within your means. So a lot of times just by completing a budget exercise and then comparing it to how much money you're bringing in. Sometimes people spend more money than they bring in, which is really eye-opening, which means that you're going to have to take a look at what you're spending your money on. But that's probably the biggest piece. And after that, I think if you can stay consistent with it each month, like right now, my husband and I have been doing this. We actually have a whiteboard that we have. So if I go run to, Target or something like that, I come home in the kitchen, I just deduct that amount on there so I can just keep track of it. Which has been
Yeah.
awesome. It's really life-changing. I've done it so long now where like I just spend that amount. And then like say if you get you get a promotion or something like that, through the years as you're achieving your goals, like you can up that a little bit, but like don't do it fast. Just do it, you earn it.
So, one of the things that I know for myself when it comes to budgeting, like I've used that Mint app,
Mhm,
like where you see everything and then you can categorize it and then you can check from year to year like how things are going.
mhm.
But yeah, it sounds like not one thing is going to fit for each person, right? So even just having a whiteboard is a great place to start and easy.
Yeah, I think it's important because, like, say if you're a business owner and you have like business insurance and stuff like that, like, you don't want to just cut your costs to go with a cheap person, because you just have to make sure that your needs and what you need is taken care of. A lot of times we'll tell people, like, online subscriptions is probably the hardest thing to just pause and be like, okay, well, I'm going to cancel this now, because it's a pain in the butt to cancel, and they make it hard for you anyway to cancel. So like, there's areas that you can look at your budget to be like, okay, if I have 5 subscriptions, it's probably time, if I'm spending more than what I'm bringing in, it probably means that I should just choose which is my favorite one. And then gradually you learn to live without it, so the budget itself allows you to just be more aware and choose your spending. So like for me, the biggest lesson it taught me was that, like, when my kids were little, my husband and me, like, we're busy, right? Raising babies, working, so I have a Starbucks. My husband would roll his eyes at me, be like, oh, great, you're spending money on that, $5 for a coffee. And I'm like, well, if you get up in the middle of the night, I won't need coffee, So I think that's what the financial advising space created, was just that, where we just really had to focus on the goals and the whys. And once you do that, and then you're talking about it, so those conversations that you have in and out the door just kind of gradually subside. Not for everybody, because I know everybody's a little bit different, but generally, like, when you're putting the effort into it, life generally does get a little bit easier, you know.
Yeah, and I think when you're actually reflecting and you can see like how much money there truly is and then what your goals are with it. Like,
Mhm.
let's say you are totally willing to release several subscriptions and whatever, but get the house cleaner. And then it will like that it allows you to talk with your partner to like make everything run smoothly versus like fearing the conversations.
For sure. I think another piece, is that, women are faced with a lot of more barriers when it comes to earning an income. And when you have babies, like, a lot of times they make the decision to stay at home because, paying for daycare is maybe more expensive than it is, going to work. So, I mean, the relationship that women have and the self-sacrifice that they have to do during periods of their life, depending on if they have kids or not, is a lot of times influenced by money. So I always encourage couples, that I would say historically, men just have a more dignified relationship with money culturally. Like it's just, I'm a guy, I work, I make income, and not every guy's like that. But I mean, culturally, very different, I think, than the majority of women. But you're there too, so I think a lot of times, like for example, like my husband, his dad was like, I'm the money guy and I know everything, and then my husband becomes his advisor and realizes that dad doesn't know everything, and then mom just let dad make all the decisions and they never discussed anything, and now you don't know what you got going on. So if you can't talk about those between yourselves, because I think a lot of times it's just not an easy thing to do, sometimes having someone there just to encourage the conversation, who works in the space all the time, to just help you is big, because that's the behavioral change. I think behavioral change is the biggest thing that we do, is just working through your relationship with money.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned this, but just I think we should reiterate it. Like a financial planner isn't there to judge you and like your
Mhm.
previous habits or even what you want to spend your money on. Like that's that they're just there to help you with your goals.
Mhm.
So it's like if your goal has nothing to do with like long-term spending, and it's like that's fine. A financial planner can help you with that. But they can
Yeah,
also yeah.
women have different goals. Like every couple, like if everything I want in life was the same on my husband's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're there too, so I think it just provides a good space for you guys to be able to acknowledge what you both of you want and what's that path to be able to get there. Another thing too is, statistically, I think in the market, there's 30% are women advisors, so a lot of times I noticed that women, it's more of a gender role, and it's evolved through time, but I feel like that, like, and there's nothing wrong with the way that divide and conquer, if you're married, who does what. Like my husband mows the lawn, I hired a house cleaner. But like, we have our roles that we have, and a lot of times we say, well, if he does this, I don't want to do this because, as a woman, you have enough on your plate anyway. I think a lot of the time when you're like, well, I don't want to do one more, but I would encourage you not to think that way, because it's empowering to make sure that you understand. So a lot of times what I do is just educating women for the first time that they should care, because I think a lot of times they're like, well, my husband did this most of our life, so I don't know what to do. Or they're, moms, single moms that, I think it's the energy. I think just masculinity is a lot with money, a lot just naturally in our culture. So like women just don't get like excited about talking about it, because even when I would early on in the career with my husband, he'd be talking about 401ks and all this stuff. And as a woman, you're just like, this is so boring. But a woman advisor understands you. So I think if you've met with one, you're like, you know what, this is just not a good fit. I think a lot of times it might just be better to work with a woman who can um, better understand your needs and balance not only the education piece of all the products and stuff of what you need to know to get you to where you want to go, but also just spending more time with you based on budgeting and, just your needs and things like that. So just making sure that you sync up with someone who resonates well with you and your goals, I think is really important as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would want to say to women about like this idea of I don't really even have much money. I can't
Mhm.
possibly work with a financial planner, because I think like you kind of said this, that's not true at all,
Mhm.
but we get all caught up um in that, I
Mhm.
think. And then you don't work with one and then you could possibly be missing out.
I think you'll be surprised how much you think about money during the day all the time. It's just little things, just you're at the grocery store, you're trying to get your kids signed up for stuff, or you're, who knows what. I think you think about money a lot of times through the course of the day, and a lot of times it's either, you know, good feelings, bad feelings, mixture of both. So, and I think what happens is that people have a tendency to say, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. And I would actually say, the most people that I sit down with, they neglect their finances for the most of their life. So back to the conversation that we had in the beginning, where when your teacher was telling you, like, you have a time, you're only a window of time that you have until retirement, so like it's either like if you don't do anything and say through your 40s, that means you have to do that much more catch up in a short period of time. Or when you're younger, when your expenses are really low, education is really powerful. It really is. I think that the trajectory of your life can completely change. So even if you came from a background with no money or things like that, like anything is possible. And it comes down to your budget. Really, it just comes down to your budget and just how efficient you are with your budget and how intentional you are with your budget. So, if you're younger, you might need to just save. If you just saved a certain small percentage of what you have, and you have a cell phone bill and small grocery budget and stuff like that, and you build that habit of staying consistent, imagine what you'll be able to do through the course of your lifetime. So we don't want money to manage us, we want to manage our money. And so like I think if you're living your life where like you just feel like you're just out of sync with it, like there's plenty of advisors out there that have debt management strategies for you, that just can kind of give you the tools to be able to set yourself up. And I think I've met people, nobody has the same balance sheet, nobody has the same relationship with money, nobody has the same goals that they want in their life. But I firmly believe that just by meeting with one, it can really just help you set you up, and you'll be surprised how much it can change your life even from one meeting.
I would highly agree. So we have a question, and I have a question too. So
Mhm.
are there any resources online you would recommend? And you mentioned budget worksheets
Mhm.
earlier.
Um, there's so much out there. Like I think I would always just say work with a trusted professional, or advice from someone that just something that worked well for them. A lot of times news, the internet is just filled with anything you want it to be. But I don't know. It just depends. There's
So
great things out there. There's,
I'll add my question to this, and I think it
sure.
will help.
Yep.
So, like, there are a lot of different ways that you can interact with financial planning for yourself, right? Like, you
Mhm.
can go online and you can be buying shares and trade things in the stock market on your own through
Mhm.
those different apps, which I used to be familiar with. But I think knowing the different ways that you can work with a financial planner, like my financial planner charges me a flat rate.
Mhm.
Other financial planners charge per year, and other
Mhm.
financial planners charge differently. So there's probably a myriad of ways. And to like, what are the typical ways when you would work with, because I think people think it's automatically going to be so cost prohibitive.
Mhm.
So if you could speak to that, and then I think that would help with, what kind, like being able to actually take that step and reach out to somebody, because you just think, oh my God, I can't afford it.
Yep. A lot of everyone's different. Every company's different. I think it's best just to find out, what company works well for your needs, with that. But I think that fee-based planning is for people that just want more personalized planning, for themselves, that they just want. I mean, I think people that have a tendency to have higher income, higher tax brackets, and just more complex situations want a fee-based planning. A lot of times, like the planning work that we do, the planning work is free, so like we can offer advice for free. We have products and stuff that people can and work with us too. So if anybody ever wanted to sit down with me for an hour just to share a little bit more about their goals or anything like that, I'd be happy to work through any budget stuff with anybody. Um, but there's not really like a magic app. There's not a magic thing. I think the best place to start is a budget, so like if there's an app out there that just, that if you work well with apps, or if you work well with just pen and paper, like whatever way that you think that you can build a habit for yourself to make it consistent is a great place just to start. But there's endless options, and I can't really recommend anything because, everything that I want to recommend is based on your goals and your budget and your values. And it's America, so there's a whole rainbow of everything out there. I've heard a lot of really cool apps that people can do investing on that's cheaper. Um, you know, um, Companies have more of a plan, like they're trying to set you up for retirement planning. Their philosophy, it's really complex. So the best advice I could be would be to talk to a professional.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, I really appreciate that. We talked earlier a few months ago to a lawyer, and she just said, yeah, there's lots of legal things out there. And you could do your whole legal thing and then realize that you did something wrong or missed something, and then you have to fix it. And then it's just way too expensive to fix it. When if
Mhm.
you just had sat down and actually invested in the lawyer, you'd probably be better off. So it's
Mhm.
like the same kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, so people can call and reach out to you, and I have your email in here. It's just
Mhm.
kelly.turbet at nm.com, but I have it listed in here, so you can reach out to Kelly and you can say, hey, I'm interested in finding out more about what this whole financial planning thing is, and then you can schedule a time to speak with her.
Yeah.
um
Like whatever's on your heart, a lot of times there are meetings, it's just like, I mean, money's emotional, people are, and it's tough times. It's been a heck of a year for people. So I think that, you, you can't, you can't make up your mind of what you think it's going to be like until you're in it. And I think that's the one thing I would encourage people. And then share who you are, share your values, share your goals. And if they have the right answers that are speaking to you, ask some more questions, and you know if it's a fit. But yeah, I'd be happy to help out. We do debt management, budgeting, all that stuff. I'd be happy to help out for free. And I really do it like on a case by case situation, because somebody might have a more complex situation and stuff too. So I'll have a series of conversations with anybody that just wants um, the time.
yeah, I mean, I think that this just kind of revealing the fact that almost every single person has issue with money in some form or fashion, and that the idea of planning for retirement and making the time to do that, it's a big deal for just about everybody, regardless of where they're at. Like, I think before we got on this call, Kelly and I were talking, and she's like, there are people who make loads and loads of money who have no idea how to plan for the future. All they do is spend, spend, spend. So they might be really enjoying the moment, but it might end up becoming really impractical later. Of course, we're not there to judge, like that's where they're at. But just so you understand that just because you think somebody else is somewhere, it's you don't know, right? So it's really just important to know where you're at so that you can plan and feel like you are doing what you can within your means. So I really appreciate this conversation.
Of course.
And I know we have a couple other people. Anybody else who's on live, if you have any questions, now's the time to pop them in. um, the other thing that I wanted to ask you, when somebody's asking about budget worksheets, to me, like the first thing that just comes to mind is you do look through your credit card statements if you use a credit card, or just look through your receipts. And I mean, Excel, like Excel or even like Google Sheets, they probably have just a basic budget, and just start with plopping everything in there, and then also plop the things in there that maybe you're not spending your money on now but you'd like to, like, just so that you have an idea. But
Mhm.
it does take you, I mean, you do have to invest the time and energy to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think what holds people back a lot is fear, because money's scary. A lot of emotions to money, is a big thing. They just think it's like this big mountain, so you think of like anything, like trying to make efforts to your health and your fitness and stuff. And the first day you're like, oh, I got to go do all this. It's not what it is. Like, it's a series of small things, like I will tell clients sometimes, like say they don't save any money at all, like that's where we start. If you're not saving any money at all, let's see, you'll be surprised the opportunity that's already within your budget. It's a lot of times I'd say it's there, it just means that you just got to see it, which a lot of times is where I come in. But yeah, it's, they just think it's a mountain, and they think like they just want to give up on it and stuff too, but there's no sooner than later, like I said, is the biggest thing I could advise. Because the sweet spot is going to be 10 years to retirement. That's where like you've worked your whole life, and you're going to approach Social Security, and like you want to know, like that's the big day, like that's the day you worked your whole life for. So that's when conversations you get excited, like you care. And I feel like that, but if you wait too long to care, imagine all the stuff that you could do in between. The last thing I'll say is there's not a magic button. So a lot of times I'll encourage people, like they just think like if debt can magically be wiped away. A lot of times, like if you're spending more, like if your expenses are high, you're not able to save, there's no other options to tweak anything out. It might mean that you have to get a second job sometimes, or it might mean you have to put a little bit more time in if you want to be able to save. So I just think a part of it's just about taking ownership of what you need to do to be able to get there, and that there's not always just like this easy pill for everything, you know. And so even with debt management, like a lot of times people are like, what do I do? Like, what one do I tackle first? And the best advice I could say is anything that's high interest, bad stuff, you know, is usually the one you probably want to get rid of the most, but it's really case sensitive. Like I have to really actually look at someone's stuff to see everything you have, your financial situation, and together we just kind of talk through what that looks like. But if you pay off something, so say if you pay off your car and you have, you know, $300, our natural human tendency is to be like, I have more money, let's go spend it. Like you're almost, your natural self is a horrible saver, a procrastinator, and someone who just makes excuses. And it takes a lot of willpower to be able to just break through that sometimes. And sometimes it just takes a lot of tries. Like my husband and me, like, to set a budget and set a limited amount of what we could spend, it took a couple tries until we finally felt good on it. My advice would be just not to give up. And like if you do save, you pay off your car, you have $300, that's not just $300 to go spend on what you want. It means that you can, if you want to tackle your debt strategy, apply it to your debt. Get used to living on a lifestyle for a while, and then gradually as your income goes up, because you know through the course of your life, most people make more money the course of their life. Obviously some bad things can kind of happen, you know, get fired or someone passes away or something like that, but like apply that money to that. And you know, like I love it. Like I love actually shopping at Aldi. Like saving money to me, like I love it. It's so fun. And you just feel empowered. And I think the message of today is that like people come into it fearful, but then once you kind of get going, you kind of get addicted to it. You're like, oh my God, I'm saving. And all of a sudden you get a promotion or something like that. And then you call me, and these are my favorite calls. Like, I just got a $10,000 raise, you know, like, and look how much I'm saving, and, you know, things like that. So I believe it's everybody can get there, you know, but we just all come from different incomes, different circumstances, and success looks different to a lot of people. So I always encourage you to whatever speaks to you is where you should go.
I love that. And I think it's wonderful. And I think that just like you said, just like with everything in your life, it just takes some practice and it takes some dedication and it takes awareness. Like whether it's your diet, whether it's something else with your health, whether it's with a relationship or your career, you have to tend to it, right? You can't just ignore it. And so this is just an area that I am really passionate about because I want to be able to grow old and eventually not feel like I have to be working. And I also just want that for everyone else. So thrift store shopping is the best. Recycle. Yes, agreed. Like I just bought the greatest dress off of Goodwill, like the Goodwill auction. It's like brand new. It's great. I mean, granted, you can't try it on and all those other things, but it was just fun to get something that like probably originally cost at least $100. I got it for $10. I did have to pay for shipping, but it's fun. It is fun. It's like playing a little bit of a game. So it's like, that's my game.
Like if you're Jennifer Aniston and you can go buy whatever you want, then go buy whatever you want. But if you can't, then it just means a lot of times it's just kind of taking a look in the mirror a little bit, but like don't be hard on yourself, the just accept and look and be like, okay, like I'm looking at my credit card statement. I go to Starbucks like 13 times a month. Be like, you know what? That's a problem. But if you make a lot of money, it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter, So, and for me, like, I actually love looking really good for cheap, so like this is H&M, to me, because I don't think only one that really notices is probably you. So sometimes just like, what limitations are you putting on yourself? And sometimes breaking free of that sometimes is really liberating at the same time. So live within your means, never spend more than what you're bringing in. Make sure you save. Like if I could say like, people love the idea of investing, and investing is kind of like your extra cash. That's kind of like if you go to a casino and you'd be like, hey, they hit the jackpot, awesome. But if you could live without that money, awesome. Like your budget's important, savings important, making sure you have a plan when bad things happen is important. And just establishing good habits. And I think that's really what financial planning is just establishing really good habits in the course of your life, just like fitness and diets and anything.
Yay. Oh, I've got a one more note. I'm excited about this. I have learned some valuable lessons very recently from someone and saw the planning part in the process and how it pays off in the long term, and excited to get back on track.
Mhm,
Yes. Wonderful.
mhm.
So I think that that's like kind of ending on a high note. If anyone has any questions, feel free to try to pop them in there before we wrap up. But just knowing that somebody like Kelly is there to help you really take the stress and take the emotion out of the finances and just bring it back to, okay, what is the reality? What can we do? How can we make this easy? And what are the goals? I just think that's so great. And I love that you mentioned, single moms. I think a lot of single moms probably feel like pretty strained. And so it's so nice to hear like these are the people that you have been checking in with, and people reach out to you, because all of us deserve to feel like we have somebody who's helping us on our journey, right? So
I think,
I really appreciate that.
yeah, I think it's really on a high note, go alone. It's harder doing things on your own. And I think like if someone just really struggles with spending and you've tried it how many times and you fail, usually if you have support or someone, I guarantee that the chances of you succeeding will increase a lot too.
Yeah.
So if you're a single mom, you're like, I don't know where to start, and it's only me, like, don't put the burden on yourself, because I think sometimes it just feels like how can I do that? Or a lot of times with women, like, do I deserve that? I know that's one thing I struggle with, and like, do I, as a woman, like, do I deserve that? Do I deserve to have a lot of money and do this stuff with my money? And you do. So I'm here to support anybody. Feel free to sit down with anyone and just be a good listener and see if I can help or send you in the direction. So always a
Yeah.
resource.
Yay. Well,
Mhm.
Kelly, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you guys for being on. I love that you guys have been paying attention and picking some stuff up. If you think of anything else, feel free to pop it in here. But Kelly, this has been wonderful. And I'm just going to remind you guys, and it's on here as well, but you can reach out to Kelly via her email, and it's just Kelly, Kelly .turbett, TURBETT nm.com. Okay. All right, guys, we will check in with you later. Have a great day.